What is going on, guys? Dylan here. I'm just here to talk about free agency. It's that time of year again. Eagles get to add on to their roster and hopefully get better. So more specifically, I'm going to talk about the wide receiver position. We were horrendous this year at receiver. We didn't have many weapons that Carson Wentz could throw the ball to. Drops were all over the place. I don't want to get that much into it. It was awful. But yeah, I think the receiver position needs to be addressed as soon as possible, whether it's in free agency or the draft. But since free agency is right around the corner, I'm just gonna jump into it and name some guys I think we should get. I'm really only gonna talk about 6 guys I really think we should get. Some guys who didn't make the list that I was talking about. There's honorable mentions maybe to consider them. Kenny Britt, Victor Cruz. They're still all right receivers. I probably upgrades of what we have now. I just don't think they're what I'm looking for in a receiver. And then Kamar Aiken, Robert Woods. I just don't. Sure, there might be upgrades, but it's not the answer, in my opinion. And I guess while I'm on the subject, I guess I'll talk about my criteria for choosing a receiver. So number one, I want a number 1 wide receiver. I don't want another receiver just going to come in here and get 500, 600 yards. I want a guy who's going to be put up well over 1,000 yards. A guy Carson Wentz can go to all through the game. Guys defenses need to scheme against. I want that kind of receiver, an elite receiver. And then number 2, the other thing I look into closely is, are these players going to live up to their contracts? With the way the market looks now, these receivers are going to be making a lot of money. And if I'm putting over $10 million into a receiver, I want over $10 million of production back. Just as simple as that. Not rocket science. That's just the way I feel about it. I'm sure many people agree with me on that. Yeah. So the 6 guys I think the Eagles should pursue are Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Cooks, and he's not a free agent. He's not a free agent, obviously, but his name has come up in trade talks a lot recently, so I just thought I'd throw that in there. Next is Terrelle Pryor, Desean Jackson, Kenny Stills, and Brandon Marshall, who was just recently released. So just to jump right into it, Alshon Jeffrey's first on my list. He's easily the best receiver out on the market right now. He's projected to make a huge payday with $14-17 million. Just to put that into perspective, that's Julio money, Dez money, AJ Green type money. He's going to be making a lot of money, and the main concern with him is injury issues. He had a hamstring injury throughout his career, but to dispel that narrative a little bit, he didn't miss a game last year due to injury, but he did miss 4 games due to a suspension, PDs, I believe, and if he gets caught again, he's going to be out for a significant amount of time. So, if let's say you give him $15 million and that happens, that's $15 million down the drain. Just sell the franchise at that point. You messed up. But yeah, he's 27 years old, probably going to have, I'd say, a good 5 years of production out of him if you give him a contract that much. But yeah, so he's easily the best receiver in the market, something for the Eagles to consider. Up next is Brandon Cooks, a huge deep threat down the field, put up over 1,000 yards 2 straight years with Drew Brees. He's a great receiver. I'm a big fan of the guy. Just the main issue with him though is what we can do to get him. Apparently the Saints are looking to get a 1st-round pick. I'm not sure if that's something I'd be willing to do. I definitely wouldn't do. I'm not even sure. It's not that I'm not sure. I definitely wouldn't give up a 1st-rounder for Brandon Cooks. A 2nd-rounder, I don't think I would either. The draft's in Philly, for Christ's sake. You better have some picks. And a 3rd-rounder maybe, and some players I would do. Maybe throw in Connor Barwin or Michael Kendricks, guys who we're probably going to get rid of anyway, but still have some value. I do something like that, and the Brandon Cooks is a great receiver. Actually, I take that back. He's not a great receiver. He's a very, very good receiver. He's not that elite level yet, but he's still very young. He's the youngest out of all the guys I've named so far. So definitely something to consider for the Eagles. He's a guy who can develop with Wentz and help him out throughout his career. But definitely something to consider. Terrelle Pryor next, probably has more question marks than anyone else on the list, just because he only played the wide receiver position for 1 year. He was a quarterback in the NFL beforehand. But, he did put up good numbers last year. Pretty good numbers. And due to that, he's probably going to make somewhere between $13, $15 million, which, like I said before, that's a lot of money. And he's 27 years old, same age as Alshon Jeffrey. So, yeah, there's a lot of question marks about him. And but, in my opinion, I think you put him in the offense, he's easily the best wide receiver on the team. But, yeah, that's definitely something for the Eagles to consider. Up next is Desean Jackson, former Eagle, still a fan of the guy. He's 30 years old though, and he still has that elite speed to make plays down the field. The question is how much longer is he going to have it, and is making like such a big investment in him that much, because he reportedly wants $12 million, which that's a lot of money for a 30-year-old wide receiver. But I don't think he's going to get that much, but still, that speed can be gone in a blink of an eye. Once you hit 30, a lot of times it's all downhill from there. But it's definitely something I think the Eagles should look into, inquire about. He's expressed interest in returning home. I'm not sure if he did that just to maybe get more money out of contract negotiations, or if he actually genuinely wants to come here. But he definitely would help the team out for sure. So if I'm the Eagles, I'd look into it. Up next is Kenny Stills. Yeah, he's a downfield threat. He's a number 3 receiver on the Miami Dolphins, but that's mostly due to the fact he's behind a great receiver in Jarvis Landry and Devontae Parker, who turned out to be pretty good. So yeah, he's just behind a lot of good people in the depth chart, but he's a downfield threat. A guy Wentz would be able to throw the ball deep down the field to, and he can't. People always talk about Wentz's deep ball, and yeah, it's been off, but for Christ's sakes, he doesn't get to throw the ball down the field. And it's due to the receivers. People wanted to say the same thing about Bradford. Oh, he can't throw the... No, it's not that he can't throw the ball down the field. It's they don't have receivers that can get open down the field. Kenny Stills is the guy who can do that, and he's only 24 years old. So something for the Eagles to definitely consider. But the main issue, it's not so much an issue, it's just the question really about Kenny Stills is the price tag. At first, they were saying maybe $6 or $7 million, which would definitely makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. But then now apparently he's asking for somewhere like $9 to $12 million. So it's definitely a big question mark, But Kenny Stills is nowhere close to an elite receiver, but he's a guy who could definitely help out the team for sure. And then last but not least, Brandon Marshall. Don't even need to go into details about what he does on the football field. This dude's a future Hall of Famer, still playing well at the age of 32. But yeah, he was just cut recently. The main issue, with Brandon Marshall is just the fact he's probably not going to want to come here. He's 32 years old, probably close to the end of his career. He probably just wants to go and get that Super Bowl ring so he can, end his career on a high note. But in order to do that, you're going to need to play for a contender. And, let's face it, the Eagles aren't a contender at the present moment, and neither are other teams that like the Tennessee Titans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, other teams that are looking for receivers. They're not going to be able to, probably not going to be able to get him either, due to the fact that he was probably going to want to play for a contender. Expect him to go, at least try and go and play for a team like New England or Pittsburgh, something like that. That's the only thing I could see making sense for him. But, yeah, but if the Eagles have a shot at getting him, they definitely should inquire about it at least, because he would certainly help out the offense despite being 32 years old. But, yeah, so those are the 6 guys I think the Eagles should consider. Out of all the 6 guys who I prefer the most, I think we should go for Alshon Jeffrey. And yes, I understand the risks, the injury risk, the suspension risk or whatever, but basically what it comes down to is I want the best receiver I possibly can get for Carson Wentz. You know, it's a second year in the league. You know, everyone always talks about how important that is. And, you know, just look at the other young quarterbacks around the league and what they're working with. Dak's working with Dez. Derek Carr is working with Amari Cooper. Mike Evans is, not Mike Evans. Jameis Winston is working with Mike Evans. Like, just look at this. Like, it's a formula, you know? Get your young quarterback an elite receiver, and they will perform at a high level. Marcus Mariota doesn't have that yet either, but, you know, they're doing the same thing the Eagles are trying to do and getting a good receiver. So I think getting Alshon, I know there's risk behind it, but, you know, you got to pay the piper. Give him the money, and just, I think he's going to perform. He's done it before, and, you know, he's been playing well with Jay Cutler and Matt Barkley throwing the damn ball. Imagine what's going to happen when Carson Wentz gets to throw it to him. So, yeah, that's it for me. Now, let me know if you agree or disagree. Maybe you think we should have pursued a guy who wasn't on my list, maybe. Or, you know, let me know if you think we should go in the draft. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. I would just prefer to get the receiver position figured out now, and then maybe look to improve the defense or the running back position in the draft. That's just me personally. But let me know what you think about that. You know, feel free to leave a comment, leave a like. But yeah, that's about it for this video. You know, like, comment, subscribe, and fly Eagles fly. See you.